G'day, and welcome back to Building Modular Dreams. If you're tuning in for the first time, I'm Andrew Copley, Business Development Partner at AJC Modular, and I'm thrilled to be kicking off Season 2 of our podcast. Last year was a big one for us, but I've got to be honest, this season is going to be even bigger. We've got new topics, new technology, new models, and yes, we've been listening to your feedback about what you want to hear. This show isn't about some polished advertisement. It's about real conversation, real problems, and real solutions.
And occasionally some real nonsense from us. Let's be honest.
Exactly. That voice you just heard belongs to the man with more modular knowledge than anyone I know, Mark Byers. Mark's the sales manager here at AJC Modular. Between the two of us, we've got decades of experience in construction, design, and business development. But more importantly, we've got a passion for helping people build their dream homes and, in a lot of cases, secure their financial future at the same time. Mark, thanks for joining me for another season.
Thanks, mate. It's good to be back. I've got to say, when we started this podcast, I wasn't sure how many people would want to listen to two blokes ramble on about modular homes. But the response has been amazing. The feedback has been honest. Some loved it, some wanted more detail, some wanted less advertising, and we heard you. So this year we're going to go deeper, be more open, and yes, probably talk a bit more about how you can make money out of this.
And I want to add a bit about you, mate, because I think people don't realize how you got here. You mentioned starting as a carpenter, but what you didn't say is that you used to work on some of the most high-end architectural projects in the country. You saw firsthand the kind of money that gets poured into bespoke houses and how, more often than not, the final result didn't justify the expense. That's part of what led you to modular, isn't it? A sense that there had to be a smarter way.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember building this beautiful hillside house years ago. The client had endless resources. We spent 18 months on site, battling weather, coordinating dozens of trades, and the bill was eye-watering. In the end, yes, it was a beautiful home. But I thought, why does quality have to be so slow and so expensive? You know, when I discovered modular, it was like a light bulb moment. You could still have high-quality finishes and architectural design, but built efficiently and predictably. That's what hooked me. And seeing clients get into homes quickly and investors actually making money rather than waiting forever was the icing on the cake.
And if anyone thinks that modular is some new fad, think again. You've been doing this for a decade now. We've seen the technology evolve, the materials improve, and the market mature. I remember the first modular home I saw. It was essentially a glorified shed. Fast forward to today, and we're producing homes with soaring ceilings, full-height windows, and claddings that would make an architect blush. So this is not a compromise on quality. It's a smarter way of achieving it. We're not just here to sell houses. We're here to solve problems. Whether your problem is finding a home you can afford, finding an investment that actually yields returns, downsizing without sacrificing quality, or giving your kids a leg up without footing $1 million bill, modular homes can be part of the solution. And we're going to unpack all of that in a way that's hopefully informative and, dare I say it, entertaining.
We'll do our best on the entertainment front. It's a big call.
It is. Now, before we dive into the details of Season 2, I think it's important we reintroduce ourselves properly, because we've got a lot of new listeners. I'll start. Like I said, my name's Andrew Copley. I've been in the construction industry for over 10 years, working on everything from boutique residential builds to large-scale commercial projects. What drew me to modular construction is the potential to disrupt the housing industry in a really positive way. You see, traditional construction is slow, expensive, and often inefficient. Modular construction allows us to build high-quality homes quickly, at a predictable cost, and with far less waste. That means more people can afford a home or an investment property or a weekender, and they can have it in months rather than years.
And if I can add to that, Andrew, it's not just about speed and cost. It's about flexibility. Modular homes are designed in a factory environment, which means you get a level of precision and quality control that's very hard to achieve on a traditional building site. We're talking about components built to the millimeter, tested, and then transported to site for final installation. You're not dealing with weather delays, you're not dealing with stolen materials from the site, you're not paying for tradies to stand around while the rain comes down. It's efficient, and that efficiency translates to real dollars for customers.
Absolutely. And we'll talk more about that efficiency later because it ties into something a lot of people are interested in, return on investment. But first, Mark, do you want to introduce yourself to the new listeners?
Sure, so for those who don't know me, I'm Mark Byers. I've been in construction for about 15 years now. I actually started out as a carpenter, swinging a hammer, and then moved into project management. About a decade ago, I got involved in modular construction, and I haven't looked back. I've worked on everything from tiny homes to commercial buildings. What I love about modular is the innovation. Every project is a puzzle. You get to look at the site, the client's needs, the budget, and then design something that fits. It's never one size fits all. My role at AJC is sales manager, but really I'm a problem solver. I work with people to figure out what they need, whether that's a home for their family, an investment property, or something else entirely, and then I guide them through the process.
And you're modest. Mark also knows every little regulation in the book. If you've got a question about whether you can put a modular home on a sloping block, he's got the answer. If you need to know what the council will and won't approve, he's across it. Which brings me to something we really need to talk about today, our brand new display centre and our national expansion plans. Because last year when we recorded our first season, we didn't have this yet. We were working out of our factory, and we had some display homes in various locations, but nothing like what we're about to describe.
Yeah, this is huge. For us, this is a game changer. We're almost finished building an indoor display centre in Queensland. It isn't open just yet. It's scheduled to open in September 2025. Once it does, you'll be able to walk through our Airlie and Coogee models straight away. And we've got 3 more homes under construction. That will join it by the end of the year. They're being built as we speak, so keep an eye on our social media for updates.
But if you can't wait until September, we've got you covered. Our display centre in Canberra is already open. It's indoors, air-conditioned, and it showcases our Burleigh, Waratah and Barossa models, fully staged. You can walk through them, open the cupboards, check the storage space, and get a feel for what living in one would be like. That's also where our VR station and design studio live, so you can put on a headset and explore any design, or sit down at the touchscreen and play with colours and finishes.
Yeah, we deliberately chose those models to show the range. We're not a one-trick pony, and you're not stuck with those exact plans. They're a starting point. One of my favourite parts of my job is when someone comes in, loves the Waratah but wants an extra media room, or loves the Airlie but needs a bigger bathroom. We can do that. We can extend modules, reconfigure layouts, and still deliver on time and on budget. That's the beauty of modular. Flexibility without starting from scratch.
Yeah, that's something a lot of people don't realize. You can start with a base plan and then tweak it. I'm just thinking about that couple we had last week who wanted a massive pantry.
Oh yeah, the ones who thought the Airlie was too small until we showed them we could add a storage module.
Exactly. They came in, looked at the Airlie and said, "We need more cupboards." We said, "Yep, sure, we can stretch that." And you could see the relief on their faces. So don't be shy about asking. We've probably heard it before. And just to paint a clearer picture, the Airlie is a smart little unit. It's about 60 square meters in footprint. It packs a punch with 2 decent bedrooms, an open-plan living area, a galley-style kitchen, and a combined bathroom and laundry. Perfect for singles, couples, or investors who want a straightforward design that's easy to rent out.
Exactly. Then you've got the Waratah, which steps it up. It's around 90 square meters and features 3 bedrooms, including a master with ensuite, a generous living dining area, a full-size kitchen with an island bench and a big deck option. It feels like a full-sized home because, well, it is. And because it's modular, you can add a media room or a study if you need that extra space. It's around 90 square meters, give or take. I'm not great with the exact numbers off the top of my head, but it feels spacious.
And the Barussa sits right in the middle in terms of size. It has 2 bedrooms plus a separate study, a walk-in pantry in the kitchen, and those big sliding doors that open out onto an optional alfresco area. It's popular with downsizers because it has all the luxuries of a larger house without the maintenance. And it's also great for those wanting a holiday rental. It feels premium but is compact enough to work on a smaller block. Sometimes I joke that I should move into one of these myself when the kids leave home. Maybe in a few years, hey?
Yeah? Yeah, no, not yet for you, mate.
And because we're all about giving you a real experience, we've taken it a step further. We've set up a virtual reality or VR station. Now, I'm not going to claim that we invented VR or that our VR is the most high-tech thing on the market, because that would be a lie. But what we have done is created a simple, user-friendly VR experience, as simple as VR gets, where you can put on a headset and walk through any of our designs in a virtual world. You can change the color of the cabinets, you can swap out flooring, you can see what the house looks like on a sunny day or at night. This isn't some video game, it's a tool to help you visualize your home before it's built. And the reason we invested in this is because we kept hearing the same thing from clients. I can't imagine what it's going to look like. Now you don't have to imagine, you can see it.
And because we promised to be real, I'll admit the first time I tried the VR headset, I nearly fell off the stool. I had no idea how immersive it would be. Honestly, I felt like an idiot. I was standing in the virtual kitchen, and I tried to lean on the island bench that wasn't actually there. Next thing you know, I'm grabbing thin air and stumbling. Lucky there wasn't a camera on me. So if you come in and you're worried about looking silly, don't. We've all done it. It's part of the fun. The point is, it gives you a sense of space that floor plans and brochures never can.
Yeah, mate, I remember that. You nearly took out the display bench.
I know. And, I keep telling people to watch their step.
It's good fun, and, sometimes we all need a bit of a laugh when dealing with building approvals and budgets and all that. But seriously, the VR is there to help you make decisions, not to trip you up. And there's something incredibly reassuring about seeing your future home at full scale before a single nail is driven. We had one couple who were convinced they wanted a dark-colored kitchen until they saw it in VR. They walked through, looked at each other and said, "Actually, let's go lighter. It feels too closed in." If they'd only seen a sample board, they might not have realized that. The VR saved them from a design choice they would have regretted. So yes, it's a bit of fun, but it's also a serious design tool.
And just to be clear, this isn't about fancy gadgets. We're not trying to sell you a VR headset. We're trying to solve a problem. People want to see and feel what they're buying. They want to understand the space. For a lot of folks, this is the biggest purchase they'll ever make, so the more information they have, the better.
And while we're talking about visualizing your home, let's not forget the design studio we've set up in the display center. It's not just a table with a few swatches. It's a fully equipped space where you can sit down with a consultant, play with color palettes on a touchscreen, and see how different benchtops work with different splashbacks. We've even got samples of flooring and cladding that you can pick up, feel, and hold up next to each other. If you've ever tried to choose finishes off a tiny postage stamp sample in a showroom, you'll know how hard that is. Our goal is to make it easy.
Yeah, and it's amazing how creative people get when they have the chance. We've had clients mix and match materials we've never thought of and end up with something stunning. That's the beauty of giving people the tools to explore. It takes away the fear of making a mistake, because you can instantly see how it all ties together.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, some of the combinations people come up with are just wild. Sometimes we look at each other and go, should we tell them that's crazy? And then we see the finished product and it's amazing.
Exactly. And I reckon the more we encourage that kind of creativity, the better. There's no right answer. It's your home. So have fun with it.
Exactly. And speaking of solving problems, one of the biggest problems we've seen in the last year is how long it takes to get approvals in certain states. Now, we're going to dedicate a whole episode to this later in the season because it's such an important topic, but I wanted to mention it today because we've been dealing with it day in and day out, and frankly, it affects everything we do. For example, in New South Wales, if you want to build a modular home, you often need a full development application. That can take 6 to 9 months. You've got to get a private certifier, you've got to deal with council red tape, and they essentially treat your modular home like a traditional house. It's expensive, it's slow, and it's a bit absurd when you consider that other states are making it easier.
Yeah, take Victoria. Yes, you have to abide by the 7-star energy efficiency rating and the new livable housing design standards, but you don't need a planning permit in most cases. It's just a simple building permit, and that can be processed in a couple of weeks. South Australia is similar. You still need a planning permit, but again, it's a simple process. 2 weeks for planning, a couple of weeks for building, and you're done. Queensland, our home base, is much the same. It's not free of paperwork, but it's manageable. And look, the other states have their quirks, but nothing like New South Wales. We'll go into detail later, but I just wanted to flag it, because if you're listening from New South Wales and you've been frustrated by delays, know this: it's not us dragging our feet. It's the system. And we're actively working with councils and policymakers to try to streamline things, because frankly, they're holding back progress. They talk about needing to build 1.2 million houses by the end of 2029, but then they make it nearly impossible to get approvals for the type of housing that could actually get us there.
100%. Look, we're not going to get too political in this show, but we're also not going to shy away from calling out inefficiencies. If the state governments want to meet those housing targets, they need to get out of their own way. And we're going to keep bringing it up because it matters to our clients. But let's park that for now because we've got so much to get through today. The main thing is, we've got this incredible display center that you can visit, and we want everyone to come and see it.
And bring the kids. It's indoors, it's air-conditioned, and there's a big touchscreen display where you can choose your colors and finishes live in person. We've got materials you can touch, benchtop samples, flooring samples, cladding options. You can mix and match to see what you like. There's nothing quite like being able to say, yes, I like that timber finish, and then seeing what it looks like with the paint color you had in mind. It takes the guesswork out of it.
And I think that's a good segue into what you can expect from this season. Because as exciting as the display center is, this podcast is still the best way for us to have long-form conversations about the things that matter to you. Here's what we've got coming up. Next episode, we're going to talk about how modular homes can generate serious income. We're talking real numbers, how much you need to put in, what kind of rent you can get out, how quickly you can scale your portfolio if that's something you're interested in. We've got clients who are making $700 a week on investments that cost them around $100,000. That's not a get-rich-quick scheme. That's just understanding the maths and the process. And we're going to break it down.
Then we'll be talking to retirees about downsizing. We'll have a conversation about building a small, high-quality home that's easy to maintain, freeing up capital for the things you actually want to do in retirement. We'll explore how you can have a beautiful home without the upkeep of a huge house and still stay close to the kids and grandkids. After that, we'll take a deep dive into how first home buyers can get into the market. For a lot of younger people, the dream of owning a house feels out of reach. Modular construction can make that dream a reality, and we'll explain how.
We'll talk about how parents can help their kids by putting a modular home in the backyard. We'll look at affordable housing projects and community solutions. We'll share tips on how to get councils on board, how to finance your build, and we'll keep you updated on our national expansion plans because, yes, we're going national. We'll also have a few fun episodes about unique uses for modular buildings, like off-grid cabins and holiday rentals. We've even got some wild stories about people building music studios, artist retreats, and remote work havens. So there's a lot to look forward to.
And we should probably address the elephant in the room, or the solar panel on the roof. We've had a lot of people ask whether AJC does all the high-tech stuff: solar arrays, smart lighting, home automation systems, off-grid batteries. The answer is, sometimes. We don't install them ourselves. We're not an electrical contractor. but we design our homes to be compatible with those systems. That means if you want to put in a 10 kHz solar array and a Tesla Powerwall, we can make sure the roof structure and the electrical system are ready for it. If you want a fully integrated smart home system with sensors and voice control, we'll make sure the walls are ready to accommodate it. But we don't supply those gadgets. We leave that to the specialists. We're builders first and foremost.
And that's an important distinction because there's a lot of hype out there. You'll see headlines about the smart home of the future and off-grid nirvana. And while we love innovation, we don't want to overpromise. Our focus is on delivering a well-built home that meets your needs today and can adapt tomorrow. The rest is up to you and the tech you decide to bring into your space.
Right. So hopefully that clears things up. Now, let's talk about the structure of today's episode, because you're going to be with us for about half an hour. We're splitting the show into two segments. In the first segment, which you're listening to right now, we're giving you an introduction to who we are, what we do, and what this season is all about. In the second segment, after a short break, we're going to dive deeper into the money side of things. We're going to give you a preview of the numbers that make modular investments so compelling. We're also going to tell you about some of the mistakes we've made and the things we've learned along the way. Because as much as we like to talk about success, we've also had some spectacular failures. Trust me, you'll want to hear those.
Oh, yes. The time we tried to install a modular office on a site without checking the power line clearance. Let's just say it ended up costing us more than a few coffees. But those are the stories that make this fun, right? So stay with us. Grab a cuppa, settle in, and let's get into the nitty-gritty. Welcome back to the second half of episode 1. If you're just joining us, where have you been? No, seriously, go back to the beginning because we covered a lot of ground already. We talked about who we are, what modular construction is, our new display center, our national expansion plans, and a few of the topics we've got coming up this season. Now we're going to dive into something that really gets people excited: money. Specifically, how you can make money with modular homes.
Yeah, and let's just put it out there. This is not financial advice. We're not your accountants or your lawyers. We're just two guys who have been around the block a few times, sharing what we've seen and what's worked for our clients. Always talk to your own advisors before you make any investment decisions. That said, the numbers in modular can be pretty compelling.
They can be shocking, actually. I'll give you an example. We recently built a 2-bedroom unit for an investor. The total cost, land, build, services, everything, was around $180,000. That home now rents for $650 a week. That's $33,800 a year in gross rental income. If you do some rough maths, that's a gross yield of about 18.7%. Now, obviously, you've got expenses, rates, insurance, maintenance, but even after all that, you're looking at a net yield that's significantly higher than most traditional residential investments. And the reason the yield is so high is because the build cost is relatively low and the rental demand for quality, well-located housing is sky high.
And you're getting that income in 4 to 6 months from the time you start. That's the kicker. With a traditional build, you might be waiting a year, 18 months, maybe longer. Some of the lower phases of modular. In that time, you're paying interest on your construction loan, you're dealing with cost overruns, and you're not making any money. With modular, you order the home, we build it in 10 to 12 weeks, and it's on site and ready for tenants not long after. So your time to income is dramatically shorter.
So let's talk about who this works for. Because I think a lot of people hear investment and they think you need to be some big shot property developer with millions in the bank. That's not the case with modular. We've got retirees who've paid off their homes, putting a modular unit in the backyard to generate income. We've got young couples using modular homes as a stepping stone onto the property ladder. We've got families adding a second dwelling on a rural block and renting it to tourists on short-term rental platforms. It's incredibly versatile.
And don't think you need a giant farm either. In many councils, you can put a secondary dwelling on a suburban block as long as you meet setback requirements and you've got access. You might have a 600 square meter block with a bit of space out the back, perfect for a 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom module. Suddenly, you've got cash flow without selling your house or taking on a massive mortgage.
Now, here's where a lot of people get tripped up. The numbers only work if you do your due diligence. You've got to check the zoning, the services, the site conditions. You need to know if there's a sewer line running across the backyard that's going to cost $30,000 to relocate. You need to make sure the council allows a secondary dwelling. Mike, you've seen some horror stories in this space.
Oh yeah. I had one client call me after he'd bought a piece of land because it was cheap. He thought he got a bargain. Problem was, it was zoned rural residential with an environmental overlay. There were so many restrictions that he couldn't build anything bigger than a shed without a mountain of approvals. He ended up spending 18 months fighting the council and never actually built the home. The point is, modular can be profitable, but you have to do the homework up front. Talk to us, talk to the council, talk to a planner. It's much easier to walk away from a bad deal before you sign the contract.
And that's why we're big on education. That's why we're doing this podcast, because the more you know, the better decisions you can make. Speaking of education, I want to share a case study, because numbers are one thing, but stories are another. We had a couple, let's call them Lisa and John, who came to us last year. They're in their late 50s. Their kids have left home. They own a house in a regional town that's worth about $600,000. They were thinking about selling and buying an investment property in the city, but the numbers didn't add up. Instead, they decided to put a 2-bedroom modular home on their back acre. Total cost, about $200,000, including some landscaping. They now rent that home to a local nurse who couldn't find a place to live. The rent is $700 a week because there's a shortage of rentals in the area. Lisa and John are now making $36,400 a year, which more than covers their mortgage repayments on the build. In about 6 years, the unit will be paid off, and that rent will be almost pure profit. Meanwhile, they've increased the value of their property and provided much-needed housing. That's a win-win.
And that's just one example. We've got investors who have built 4 units on a single block and rent them out individually. We've got families who live in a modular home themselves and have a second unit they rent out on the weekends as a holiday rental. There's a trend now for people to build small modular cabins in wine regions and lease them to tourists on booking platforms. Those cabins cost around $120,000 each and rent for $250 to $300 per night on weekends. Even if they're only booked 150 nights a year, that's $45,000 to $50,000 in revenue. Do the maths. After expenses, you're looking at a payback period of 3 to 4 years. Then it's cash flow. And if you decide to sell, you've got an asset that can be relocated or sold with the land.
Of course, this isn't a fairy tale. There are risks. Tenancy issues, market fluctuations, regulatory changes, interest rate rises. We're not going to pretend that modular homes are a license to print money. But what we will say is this. Compared to traditional construction, modular offers some advantages that make it very attractive for investors. The lower cost of entry, the speed to market, and the ability to scale quickly are game changers. And in a housing market where demand is outstripping supply, quality modular homes can fill a gap and command strong rents.
You touched on something important there, scalability. Once you've done one modular project successfully, it's much easier to do the second, third, and fourth. You can replicate the design. You know the process. You have a relationship with the builder and the council. That's how some of our clients have built portfolios of modular homes within a few years. They start with one, prove the concept, and then roll out more.
And because the homes are built off-site, you don't have tradespeople tied up on one project for months. That means you can start building your second or third home while the first one is still being delivered. It's like having multiple irons in the fire, and that's a big part of how you scale any investment strategy.
Now, I want to talk about mistakes, because I think it's important to paint a realistic picture. One mistake we see people make is assuming that every council will treat modular the same way. they won't. We've already mentioned how New South Wales can be a nightmare with development applications. Another mistake is underestimating site costs. If your block has poor soil, you might need to spend more on footings. If it's on a slope, you might need earthworks. If there's limited access, you might need a crane. Those costs add up. So again, due diligence is key.
We've also had people try to cut corners on finishes to save money up front, only to find that tenants expect a certain level of quality, and then they end up spending more on repairs and replacements. My advice is, don't skimp on the things that matter. Insulation, windows, fixtures. Spend money where it counts because it will save you in the long run and help you attract better tenants.
Let's not forget financing. Some banks still don't understand modular construction. They'll lend you money as if you're building a caravan. That means shorter loan terms and higher interest rates. You need to shop around, and you need a broker who understands modular. Thankfully, more lenders are coming on board because they see the demand, but you have to be prepared. And sometimes using equity in your existing home is the way to go.
That's a great point. We'll talk more about financing in a later episode because there's a lot to unpack there. Construction loans, bridging finance, using self-managed super funds for investment properties. But the bottom line is, modular investment can work if you plan properly.
And just in case you're listening and thinking, this all sounds great, but I don't have spare land, don't worry. We've had clients buy blocks specifically to build modular homes. In some regional areas, land is still affordable. And the yields can be excellent if you choose the right location. Again, research is key. You want to be near amenities, jobs, or attractions, something that will drive demand.
One other question we get a lot is about depreciation. Modular homes are assets, and like any building, they depreciate over time. In Australia, you can claim depreciation on the building over 40 years if it's a residential property. That's a non-cash deduction that can reduce your taxable income. If you're investing, talk to your accountant about how to maximize those deductions. It can make a big difference.
We've probably thrown a lot at you, so let's summarize a few key points before we wrap up this segment. 1. Modular construction is fast. You're talking weeks, not years to build. 2. It's cost-effective because it's built in a controlled environment. That means you know your price up front. 3. The yields can be very attractive because your entry cost is lower and demand for rentals is high. 4. It's versatile. Modular homes can be a primary residence, a secondary dwelling, a holiday rental, or part of an investment portfolio. And 5. Due diligence is everything. Check your site, know your regulations, get your finance sorted, and don't cut corners on quality. And if we are in your backyard, I hope you've made us a cuppa. But seriously, these display centers are part of our commitment to making modular homes accessible. We want you to see, touch, and feel what you're getting. We're not just an online catalog. We're real people with real buildings you can walk through. Have we missed anything? I'm just thinking, we've covered a lot today.
I think we've thrown the kitchen sink at them. But yeah, no, we could talk for hours. Let's save some for episode 2. And don't forget to come and visit us. If you're near Canberra, our display centre there is open now. It's indoors and family friendly. And we've got the Burley, Waratah and Barossa models on show, alongside the VR setup and our design studio. That's where you can put on the headset, play with colours and finishes, and get hands-on with all the samples. Our Brisbane Display Centre is essentially complete and will open mid-September 2025, right about the time that this episode will air, with our Airlie and Coogee model ready for viewing. By the end of the year, we'll also have another 3 models there. We're also building a display centre in Victoria, which is scheduled to open in the first quarter of 2026, and then we'll be rolling out in WA, SA, Tasmania, and the Northern Territory. So depending on when you're listening to this, we might already be in your backyard, literally. Let's break down those expansion phases a bit because a lot of you have been asking. Phase 1 is Queensland. Construction is practically completed of the indoor display centre and it's scheduled to open mid-September 2025. We're also setting up a distribution hub there, which means shorter delivery times and lower transport costs for Queensland customers. Phase 2 is Victoria. We've secured a site on the outskirts of the Port of Melbourne. Construction on the display centre starts in late 2025, and we're aiming to open around February or March 2026. That centre will have different models tailored to the Victorian market, including some designs that comply with alpine and bushfire codes. Phase 3 is Western Australia. We're in final negotiations for a site near Perth. WA is a big state with unique logistical challenges, so having a local hub is essential. Phase 4 takes us to South Australia. We've had a lot of demand from Adelaide and the wine regions. Phase 5 is Tasmania, small market but big potential for tourism and lifestyle builds. And Phase 6 is the Northern Territory, where housing shortages are acute, especially in remote areas. Each phase involves setting up a display centre, a distribution hub, and a local team who understand the specific regulations and climate considerations of that region. It's a staged rollout because we want to do it properly. We don't want to stretch ourselves thin and compromise on quality or service. So if we're not in your state yet, hang tight, we're coming. All right, before we sign off, let's talk about what's coming in episode 2. We're calling it Modular Wealth 2.0, turning a cabin into cash. And we're going to take the investment discussion even further. We'll dive into specific strategies, granny flats, short-term rentals, multiple modules on one block. We'll talk to a couple of guests who've built portfolios using modular homes. We'll crunch some numbers and we'll share some of the things we wish we knew before we started. If you're an investor, you do not want to miss it. If you're not an investor, listen anyway because you might be by the end of the episode.
And we'll start collecting your questions. We want this to be interactive. We want to know what you're struggling with. So if you've got a burning question about modular homes, anything from council approvals to whether you can build on a slope, send it in. We'll answer it on air if we can.
That's right. You can reach us through our website or on social media. We're on all the major platforms and we actually read the messages. And if you're listening in New South Wales, we especially want to hear from you about your experiences with the planning system. The more data we have, the better our advocacy can be.
Couldn't agree more. All right, I think we've taken up enough of your time for one episode. If you've stuck with us this far, thank you. We hope you found it useful, maybe even inspiring. The goal of Season 2 is to empower you, show you what's possible, to help you avoid pitfalls, and to get you excited about building your modular dream, whether that's a home, an investment, or something in between.
Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review if you're enjoying the show, and share it with anyone who might benefit. And most importantly, drop into our display centre in Canberra if you're nearby, or pop into Queensland once that centre opens. We'd love to meet you in person.
Until next time, take care and keep dreaming big. See you in episode 2.